Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you are doing well and you are ready for today's show. So today is the last Friday of the month, and that means, yes, we get our monthly visit from, you guessed it, Nathan Evans. He is managing editor over at Popzara.com. If you haven't heard about them, where have you been? They do a great job of covering everything from pop culture and stuff that, we haven't even touched ourselves, including TV shows and movies and animes and manga and video games, of course, lots of that. And on top of that, they also do tech reviews just like us, and they also do a podcast just like us. So if you want a good, daily dose of entertainment, popzara.com. Now, with that being said, computeramerica.com will have a link to that and everything else that we talk about today, because we have a number of stories. If you're new to our segments, we pretty much just, talk about current events, and on top of that, talk about current movies and video games and, a lot of other stuff that you may also be looking to get into over the weekend. So it's a nice little chance for a breather, some fun conversation, and as always, Nathan and his crew do an amazing job of, parsing through what's good, what's bad, and reviewing for you. Now, computeramerica.com, podcast giveaways, archives, show notes, all that good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead, just bring Nathan on, and hey, have fun with it. So once again, managing editor, Popzara.com, and you may have heard Popzara here on the show before, because not only are they contributors, but they also help us with our bigger events such as CES, and more news on that a little bit later. If you've been watching the website, you've already seen it. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome back onto the program, Nathan Evans. Nathan, how you doing?
Ben, welcome back. Welcome back, Mr. Married Man. Haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks since CES.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Calm down, people. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so thank you for the marriage well wishes, and it's like I said before the show, it doesn't feel much different than single life, which I guess is kind of good, because I got in the flow of just having someone to talk to, and I still have that, and now she's contractually obligated to keep talking to me, so it's, if anything, it's just a little bit more secure than single life. She can't run away because there are tax implications, is what I'm saying. So there
exactly.
You go.
That's what a legal contract is all about. It protects both parties.
Exactly. But everyone, welcome into the program, and for everyone out there just listening, welcome in. For those who are watching, we're going to have the video in the background with articles and different things that you can kind of peruse and watch as we kind of do it, and you can see my smiling face. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start off this segment, if you don't mind, Nathan. Why don't we just go ahead and start off with what we were talking about before with the ChatGPT, which has come up in, really in the past couple of months. It's made a lot of headlines. But in the past couple of weeks, there's been a renewed focus on this one algorithm. And Nathan, feel free to correct me if you know a little bit more about it. But ChatGPT is essentially Google's version of the open source kind of learning algorithm. And everyone uses it for writing papers, writing articles, writing, I think one just passed the bar, according to some university, for being a lawyer. There's a lot of, there's a lot that it can do. And, well, looks like in terms of politics, let's see, the story was Jake, I'm going to mess this up, Auchincloss? Jake Auchincloss reads...
A name that sounds like it was created by AI.
Right. Reads U.S. House floor speech written by ChatGPT. So, Nathan, why did this catch your eye?
Well, I mean, it's tech related, of course, but more than that, I think if you go back and watch or listen to the things that you and I've talked about, I usually try to pick something that's interesting, but it's also effective in the culture. And I think a lot of the chat, literally the chat meta, about ChatGPT or AI generators in general has been that creators feel they infringe on their creativity. And yeah, they do. Of course they do. I mean, you're not going to hire a abacus person to do your taxes for you if you can have software do it for you. You're going to have software that was designed to streamline things. And I'm going to say something controversial. You're not going to like it out there if you're a creative, if you're an artist, if you're a writer, whatever. So much of what you do has been mechanized. Like it's like when people talk about ceramic bowls, or remember the old days, the fine china, or it's handmade. You can have an assembly line pump out things that are superior to your handmade bowl, like 5,000 a minute in some factory, or you can spend 20 hours making a handmade bowl. But at the end of the day, the person who wants to get a drink doesn't care where it came from.
The world has definitely become acquainted with the idea of good enough, and
because I mean, there's two sides to it. Let's get to the crass side. The crass side is that what these things do is they reduce the human interaction to the bare minimum. And they come out with something that is maximalist. They come out with something that looks good. They come out with something that sounds good. They come out with something, it's like mass market food. You go to McDonald's, you're not getting lovingly prepared food. You're getting rapidly prepared food.
You're not getting lovingly prepared. You're getting lovenly repaired.
Yeah, exactly.
That's with an apostrophe trademark, yes.
Or as we like to say, it's good enough.
Yeah.
But that hasn't stopped fine dining. But it does bring into question, like, what does it mean to be creative? And I hate to say this, but the culture itself has been so hijacked by creative people. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying it. They've been so hijacked. The idea that something has to be handmade to be good, it has to be lovingly prepared to be tasty. It has to be these things. And what we're finding out is that no, not really. People get tricked.
That idea was definitely a pushback from the Industrial Revolution, the idea of mass production in the 50s and 60s when everything was just getting pumped out. There was a pushback to the artists saying, this isn't this is not one of millions, but it was effort played a role. Now you have AI that's a little bit more taking, even people who, it's taking the mass production part out. These AI they put something out that is unique by blending their information into something new, but it is also one of millions because it is so simple to make.
I do want to say this, though. The difference between the mass production and the AI stuff is that the AI stuff, like you said, culls information from creative people. Like, for example, I was going to say the story of Paul Bunyan, is the most famous of these stories. The idea that there's this lumberjack who can swing his axe. Yeah. But then, the story goes, a guy with a chainsaw who's tiny itty bitty outdoes him by but that an itty bitty guy can take on this huge burly guy in his blue ox is the story. That it's, if you watch the movie The Incredibles, the bad guy, what's the bad guy's name? I forget the monologue. He's like, when everyone, he wants to give everybody superpowers. That's his master plan, because when everybody's super, nobody's super. And that's really what this is all about. But that's cynical. I would actually compare AI more closely to music than I would to mechanization, so to speak, because if you take a genre like hip hop, for example, hip hop is a music style that's almost exclusively built on samples, almost exclusively built on pre-existing modes, and they're finding new ways to use it. I mean, without someone doing the original work, there is no AI. That's what it is. And to be fair, at some point, it will become sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not cannibalistic. It'll become incestual. That if you keep having AI built upon AI built upon AI, you're going to have that, recessive thing where things become paler and paler and paler. But right now, it's the new shiny thing. It's really cool. It allows a mediocre person like myself to sound better, to look better. I mean, think about this. I mean, we've been programmed for this, Ben, for 25, 30 years. You had spell check. Famously, George R. R. Martin, the writer, says he uses 40-year-old WordStar software because he doesn't like the squiggles
or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. He wishes. Good luck. By the way, load, (8,1), run. But see, I got my bona fide.
You got it.
PDs, whatever. But anyway, but no, you do first. It came the spell check, then it came autosave, and then all the there was a story, not a story, but there's this growing reliance on Grammarly or things like Microsoft's little AI thing, like, oh, you said this word. Shouldn't you use this word instead? Oh, yeah, you feel guilty. Like, I don't want to make the computer mad.
So one thing I will say to people out there who are, have not written for publications and stuff like that, and this is something that I was first acquainted to when when Craig was kind of pointing out how to write articles for newspapers and columns and things like that, and why so many times you hear these these people calling out politicians, celebrities, whatever, saying that, oh, they have the grammar of a sixth grader, they have they have the diction of a sixth grader. When you write for publications, and this all ties back into AI, when you write for publications, they tell you write at a fourth grade level. They don't want you speaking above any possible reader's head when you're creating an article, when you're trying to say something. They want you to write at a fourth grade reading level. So no big words, nothing over 3 syllables, try to keep it very, very simple. Now, Nathan, why I say that is when you're looking at AI and, what they're writing, it makes a lot of sense that, it can write at that higher level. Again, one passed the bar, or at least a university professor said that, a ChatGPT prompt resulted in a paper that he would have passed in his class. But anyways, it's not that hard. It's good enough for everyday people. The art is good enough for, a quick poster to promote your business. The AI generated words are good enough for an article to be sent out to the masses.
Can I say something?
Because we've dumbed everything down. Go for it.
I'll say this. Dumbed down is an interesting word, but it's true. And I don't even think it means intellectually dumbed down. I think it means that have become way too comfortable with allowing limitations to define what we consider good enough. For example, everyone knows that expression like ain't, ain't's not a word. Why? Why isn't it a word? Oh, because the dictionary says it. Who writes the dictionary?
Is definitely a word, yeah.
Yeah. There was a story today about the Associated Press style guide. First of all, screw you guys. But the AP has gotten way too comfortable with this. The Merriam-Webster dictionary has gotten way too comfortable with this, and we've seen these self-appointed regulatory boards abuse their power and say, well, we don't think you should be using this term. We don't think you should be using this term. In some cases, it's grammatical, it makes sense, but then it becomes politicized, and the idea becomes, like George Orwell talked about, that once you change the definition of something, you change the thought. And so the idea would be, I think the Associated Press got in trouble because they told people not to use the word the. And one of the examples they gave was the French. Well, sacre bleu, the French were upset and they had to apologize for it, But the concept is that who gets to decide? And I can tell you, as someone who manages a website of writers, we get this all the time where people say, my experience, I did SEO, search engine optimization. Right. You're basically training people to think mechanically. You're training them to think, well, what would a search engine want me to hear? And so you're doing keywords, you're doing things like that. The argument used to be 30 years ago, calculators. We shouldn't allow calculators because it teaches kids to
because you'll never have a calculator available to you at all times. Yeah.
But, oh my God, I need to do trigonometry. It's 3 a.m. No offense. No, unless I can't, movies have lied to you. There has never been a case in the history of humanity where you needed to do quantum mechanics at 3 a.m. to stop a comet from hitting Earth. That is in Roland Emmerich films. That is not real. Sorry, Jeff Goldblum. But 20 years ago, it became the Google question, should we allow people to use search engines? Because the idea is that we're amalgamating thought. If you and I both type in, what's this? We're going to get the top search result. But the top search result isn't necessarily the best answer. I mean, you could do this experiment right now. It's one of the reasons I use Firefox browser as my research browser, because I have a search box, right? And under that search box, I can have multiple searches going on. I can search Google, I can search Bing, DuckDuckGo, and I might eventually get to the same answer, but the path is different. I'm going to get different search results based on their algorithm. And sometimes that's the answer I need. But to be honest with you, Ben, and this really plays into the whole ChatGPT or AI, whatever. It's not the answer that matters. It's the quest for the answer. It's the critical thinking that goes into it. It's the art that goes into it. It's the effort goes into it. And this is the other side of the coin. Yes, we like beautiful things. We like beautiful pictures. We like beautiful words. We like this stuff. And yeah, it requires a gifted person to do it. Like American Idol, the TV show, there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. You need to put in the time. You need to put in the effort. But if you're lazy and you're slothy and you don't care about quality, you just want to satisfy the self-appointed regulatory people. Like what was the lawyer test again? Not the ASVAB. What's it called? The one that passed it passed.
The bar. Whatever. One
of those things. But have you ever looked into that? They offer classes how to cheat the system. You can literally go and there are institutes on how to do this.
I think that one specifically was also very, kind of a gimme because that's a very technical writing. It's not expand on, what it means to be human. It's more so, what is the case law? What is this? What does this mean? How many years is this? It's a very technical exam. So that's something that, a glorified search engine
can I give you another
could
example?
Do.
Another example? Your doctor probably uses a version of this.
Of course.
Like you go into a doctor's office, you don't meet the doctor, you meet the nurse or the intake person. They ask you questions, and what they do is they go into a back room and they punch it in their their medical system. Could be POS. Right. And then what happens is like WebMD, they amalgamate the symptoms and they plop out some possibilities. That's fantastic for minor things like the cold or whatever. But what happens though is that if all we get is the top results, like you can't see me, but I'm waving my hand in the air, doing a really epic TED Talk gesture.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, what if, for example, your dry eyes is a symptom of cancer? Like you're not going to know that because that's not going to be in the top 10 or 15 results. That's where experience matters. Yeah, and that's why I was going to tell it. Yeah.
It's where to find information meets, the ability to actually use that information, which is why, I think a lot of people were like, oh, tech job or tech support's going to go away. It's like, yeah, you could just Google it, but knowing what to do with that information, once you Google it, that's where you need the experience for sure.
Well, I mean, going back to the original thesis is that,
I was going to kind of refocus this a little bit back, which is, technology, can take us so far, but of course, right now in today's world, it falls short in a lot of ways. AI, though, is getting to the point where it's not falling as short as it used to, and eventually it will not stop short. It will actually surpass us in a lot of ways. Well, eventually
it will become sentient, and then the Terminators come. And James Cameron, by the way, James Cameron, the most commercially successful director of all time.
He was before Avatar 2, but also again.
He was before and again and again and again. Yes. You know what, James Cameron, just make whatever you want. Make whatever you want. But the fact is, it's here. And it's not going away.
So for everyone out there watching the video portion, we have Jake Auchincloss reads U.S. House floor speech written by ChatGPT. Just skimming it, looks like he gave the prompt. And this is him giving the prompt to ChatGPT, saying, "You are Jake Auchincloss, a member of Congress. Write 100 words to deliver on the floor of the House of Representatives. Topic: the importance of the United States Israel Artificial Intelligence Center Act, which the congressman will reintroduce this term." And that was, and included a link and all that kind of thing. And then he has the audio, or not the audio, but the what it spit out. So this is the speech that it actually spat out, and it's it's a little bit of fluff. Obviously it's just kind of saying, Madam Speaker, blah blah blah, bipartisan piece of legislation, critical step forward. Both parties are happy. Both parties will improve because of this. We're doing great things. That's the end. All of that was written by ChatGPT, and that's pretty interesting because it sounds like something they would have written themselves, or at least a speechwriter would have written for them.
My question is, this was given in the U.S. Congress, right?
Yes, the House of Representatives. Yes.
Well, there's no Madam Speaker, so we have a different speaker now.
Yes.
So sorry, AI, you failed, into the trash bin. But not but not empty trash bin. We'll keep you in the trash bin in case we want to restore you later. But I'll say this. I think the greatest concern about this, and I am a futurist. I like futuristic things. I do. I would never say this. We just don't know how to use this technology. We don't know how it's going to be used. I think I was toying with this idea. I was joking with a friend the other day, and I said, what would it be if we created a whole website, instead of hiring writers, we just did everything AI? Everything AI. You see some people publishing books like this.
Yeah.
Because I also sent you another story about, I think CNET was passing off ChatGPT articles and not disclosing them. And I think the Weather Channel had some. It works well with weather, by the way. No one's looking at your weather app on your PC and saying, "Oh, a person didn't input that."
Amazing with weather, and I will say I've noticed this, and it's probably been a thing for about 5 years now, and it seems like a long time, but it works amazing with like stock updates. Like today the stocks did this, and this.
But this is a big thing that it's like a nasty little secret of the book industry. We cover books a lot on Popzara, so we hear about this BS. There are so many services that amalgamate books for you and condense them down into like bite-sized bits. Like instead of having to read the whole book, you just have to read like maybe a chapter, and it gives you the condensed, like from concentrate orange juice. And there's subscription services that do this, and it's popular. Like people are not against it. Like me, it's like, oh, I would never do that, right? But people like this stuff. And I think what artists have to remember is that their over-evaluation of themselves has to find a way to survive in this world of which mass market, AI-generated content is basically free. And that's going to be difficult to navigate. And I don't know if we need a law for it. I don't think we need to go that far. But I think if you're a real artist, if you're a genuinely real artist, it's going to be interesting to see how to navigate this.
It's kind of I'm about to say fun, but it's probably not the right word. It's interesting how when this conversation came up a while ago, it was machines are coming for your jobs, but it was first the factory jobs. Obviously, they and people still get employed by factories. It's all well and good, but there is a lot of automation, and then they're coming for cashiers, kind of wait staff, front end, house of restaurant, whatever, and then drivers and truck drivers. They were going to lose their job, but ironically, it seems like the thing we thought we would always have an upper hand with on technology, which is the creative field, the music, the art, the writing, the whatever, that seems to be almost something that this technology is keenly ready to kind of just consume.
I think you're right, but I want to say we knew this, though, because again, if you go into a music recording company or a music studio, you go into a publishing company, they've been basing their content off algorithms for a long time. Like they do not have original thought in their heads. Like they will find out whatever the algorithm says, this is what we want. Like we have a whole genre of literature that was created as an algorithm. The YA genre was literally forged in the aftermath of Harry Potter to satisfy an algorithm. Like we had genres before, like romance, Harlequin, horror, whatever. But we literally have it's called YA, right? Young adult, because it satisfies these checklists in a way that no other genre before has. And you can't go above it, can't go beyond it. I mean, there's writing software that has been doing this for a while where you can press a button and create a character for you, create background, create whatever. And so again, I mean, did you ever use the little program Print Shop?
I'm curious to see where it goes because, before it was like, what are we going to do with all these low skill, low wage workers, when they can't find a job because automation takes it? It's funny because one of the jobs that AI is coming for is the CEO, the highest level of a company, because it's the CEO's job to look at data, make decisions for the company based on current trends and the current, climate of whatever business they happen to be operating in. And that's something that an AI able to take in a bunch of information and, give you a result. That's something that it's, well to do as well.
Ben, if Star Trek has taught me nothing, Star Trek has taught me that we need the human element, the human spirit. They want us to join with humans because that's how you explain magic in Star Trek.
Do you think until ChatGPT or one of these art things or whatever?
It already happened. Did you not see Disney? Like Disney had this new president for like 6 months, and he came in, I'm going to do this different. He's gone. Why? Because he went against the algorithm. We want to go back to what we had. It's like, that's the thing. It's like they're primarily running by algorithm already. Like, you're not going to have a visionary like take the company over the cliff. You're not going to have the Rockefeller anymore, who's sitting up on his 30th floor wearing shoe boxes on his feet, deciding the fate of a company. There's just too much at stake. The closest I can tell you, look, I'm going to go way back with this. I'm going to go back to King George III and the regency of him.
Classic.
Like history. Yeah, I know exactly. History says he had some sort of mental illness. He was peeing blue and everything. But that's why, Ben, that's why we developed the regency, because this guy's nuts. So we're going to run it and let him have his little thing, right? Like, you're going to have an Elon Musk once in a while, or Steve Jobs, but that's rare. But pretty soon, like, a computer is running things. That's what it is. That's what's going to happen. Anyone who's ever used an Excel spreadsheet knows about variables. Like, you put numbers in, you get numbers out. That's how it works.
I'm hoping it makes everyone more productive, and no one loses anything for it, and just everyone has easy access to cool stuff.
But I have one more thing though. I have one more final thought, and this is not really a discussion. This is just thought. So, you ever notice the more companies talk about unionizing, is whenever there's talk about unionizing the workers, is when tablets start replacing retailers. Like, you go into a McDonald's, like, all this talk about $15 an hour. Next thing you know, tablets take your orders. I was at a ramen restaurant last month. A robot delivered the food, right? Like, people, I applaud this stuff, but that robot doesn't cost anything, really. That tablet doesn't cost anything. And I'm worried that these low skill workers, and people say there's no such thing as low skill. Yes, there is. So if you could be replaced by a gadget, it's low skill.
Low barrier to entry. I don't mean to say skill. Yes. I'm sure a lot of people take pride in anything that they work on, but I'm saying low barrier to entry, where you just need a hand, hands and
I just feel bad, because there are people who need a first job. There are people that need this stuff, and I will take a human over a machine every moment of every day.
There's people that need a first job, and then there's also people that need people to do that first job. Like, you're always going to need someone to do something for you. There's no job that is beneath anyone. I've always felt that.
Exactly. Everybody. That's the work ethic we should be teaching. Is that you're not too good to be a janitor. No. You're not too good to change the trash. Like, literally, if you think you are, you're not. Right. But I'll say this. I agree with you. It's like, I don't know how this is going to affect, because it's not literally going to affect the CEOs of major Fortune companies right now. It's not going to affect business people or the endless vice presidents. It's going to affect someone who can be replaced by a machine. And we expect that in car manufacturing, but now we're going to expect that in the service sector. And I know, I think it was Frontier Airlines who said they were getting rid of their phone customer support. It's going to be online only. And if you've ever been stranded in an airport where you had to deal with one of those damn things, you're going to be frustrated when you got to chat with a chatbot.
I expect nothing less of Frontier, and I expect Spirit to be kicking themselves, going, "Why didn't we think of that first?" That's
how can we make it worse and more frustrating?
It's like, what if we just installed cattle prods in the chairs and we just constantly tortured our passengers? Is that a way that we can turn that into a profit somehow? Maybe the non-cattle prod seats we can charge an extra $20 for.
God, I was on a Spirit flight like a year ago or something, and they I'm just trying to read my book, and my headphones can't drown out the noise, and then they come and they go up and down the aisles with those credit card offers. I'm like, just leave me alone. I'll pay the fee. Just leave me alone, please. But no, I welcome AI cautiously. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to, how creative people are going to have to navigate the reality.
And we're not really going to talk too much about it, but I will say that AI also has the other side to kind of deal with, and the other side being you can train information, and information is so free and readily available that it almost feels like no one has to pay for any of it. But at the same time, when you train an algorithm, you need most likely trademarked and copyrighted material. You need images, you need pictures, you need books, you need licensing agreements, whatever. None of that is in place. So I will say, Nathan, I am interested to hear how one curates information for an AI, and if they are going to have to if not revenue share with the people who provide the information or at least created the information, how are they going to make sure and determine that something wasn't something trademarked?
That's the thing. I mean, to close it out, though, to close the whole thing out, like we saw bits of this a couple of years ago when you and I were talking about social media, and the argument became social media is a private company. They can do whatever they want. My argument has always been they are a private company in the same way a local business is a private company. You can't discriminate against a customer based on race or gender or sexual orientation, and you shouldn't discriminate against intellectual thinking based on that either. And you saw what happened. It was chaos on social media. It was absolute chaos, and it continues to be. But I said a minute ago, Associated Press or Merriam-Webster or dictionary.com, those are the sources they're calling from. Those are the sources among them. And we've seen them politicized it's like signal to noise. It's like leverage in a fulcrum. You have a very small number of people controlling the thought processes of a very large number of people. And I don't know where to go with this. I don't want to say regulatory boards because that's government interference. But at some point, though, if you can have someone change the definition of a word and suddenly that affects a law or it affects international treaties or something, then you have to consider the fact that if we're going to, like you said, train AI, then there needs to be some sort of supervision before that can happen.
I think supervision is one. I think sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think some transparency 100%. of these, because right now there is zero transparency whatsoever.
Well, you see what happened with Wikipedia. Wikipedia has been so tarnished. I think I don't want to get into politics, so I'll be very brief. But there was a incident, I won't say which, but you probably know what I'm going to talk about, where there was a debate happening in Congress, and people were watching the definitions of words being changed in real time on Merriam-Webster. Like they were literally changing the definitions and updating them in real time to reflect this political verbiage. And I was like, that's unacceptable. I love having Merriam-Webster as a resource. I love these things as resources, but that never happened when it was a paper book. Like I still have my old Merriam-Webster ticket, but you can't change things in real time in a book, but online. And that can only happen. Anything that can happen that rapidly can only be used for ill. It can never be used for good, because if it's good, then you don't have to be so shy about it. But what do they say? Only the evil dwell in the dark. And like you said, I want sunlight to be disinfected. I want to know your thing. If you have a good idea, hey, let's change this word. Let's change this definition. Then show me. Make a case. So
I think having changelogs and more so with ChatGPT and more so with a lot of these art ones, I would like to see some kind of legislation come out that if you're going to train one of these things, I want to see the information that's being trained on, and if anyone is inadvertently, without their knowledge, contributing to something that is producing something of value, then hey, that's a conversation.
Final thought has nothing to do with AI though. But in a more offline version of this, we see this happening with local libraries around the country. You have like more conservative parents are saying take these books out, or liberal parents are saying take these books out. So like they are reflective. I guess that's how evolution works, is that you have local municipalities, whatever, are reflective of the community they're in. So if you live in San Francisco, you're probably going to have a lot more, let's just say, LGBT content in your local library, because that reflects the demography of your locality. But if you're in a more conservative neighborhood, you may find more religious materials. I'm stereotyping,
right.
But you do see this happening. Like right now, even today, there were stories about it. And so that's good. Like, because that adds diversity, actual diversity to the algorithm. You don't want just one thought in everything, is what I'm saying.
Right. Let's take kind of a future what if kind of scenario and apply it to a little bit different of a topic. And we this one is Madison Square Garden, and something that I guess it's been in our heads ever since China was one of the first ones to really use the technology, where they were able to scan their citizens and pick out of, there was like some kind of event where they had, 100,000 people, and they were able to pick six like convicted six felons who were on the run. They were able to pick them out of a crowd of, thousands and thousands of faces.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
I think this there was Roger Ebert reviewed the movie Enemy of the State back in like 1998, the Will Smith movie that Gene Hackman.
Right.
And in his review, he talks about how they're using off-the-shelf software that can zoom in on someone's driver's plate.
Right.
And Roger Ebert speculates. He's like, oh, if private companies can do this, like I'm pretty sure the government can do more. And this was back in the 90s before Google everything.
Right.
I suspect that governments have such sophistication with AI software, or facial recognition software, which probably uses a lot of AI.
So I kind of zoom in on China because they were the ones putting out stories of them using it successfully. You have other ones where you have like England and the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Where in London they had a failure rate of like 99%. Like someone standing on a street corner going, "Hey, are you that guy?" was probably more accurate than what their system was doing.
I like British detective shows. I love British detective shows because they're all the same. They're all low entry barrier. That is the most secure
job, by the way. Technology is not going to solve that problem. Yeah.
Because every single British detective show is them just looking at CCTV footage. That's all it is. Like, let's go to the footage. Let's follow the guy. Like, you're not doing any work. And like, there's no gumshoes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Luther. You're a good show, Luther, but you need Idris Elba. But what I'm saying is that the CCTV cameras were seen with disgust by the British. Like, they didn't like being surveilled. Eventually they got used to it. But the Chinese accepted it wholeheartedly. They embraced it because they didn't have to worry about public outcry. And they were able to implement the facial recognition software, not just in surveillance, but in everything. I mean, we've talked about WeChat before. We've talked about the social apps.
All of the super apps, yeah.
It all is connected, and it has been so overwhelmingly accepted that that would be like you would be being told we can't use debit cards anymore. Like it is like, why would anybody argue, right? That's what they would say. Like that's the sort of penetration that has gone there. Like, you have school children paying for lunch with their face. You know, you have everything. It's in America
and I was gonna say that, you know, all these are examples in, you know, real life situations that I guess here in America we can kind of look out and go, yeah, you know, technology is kind of getting to that point. Yeah, you know, these are conversations that we might have to have. Madison Square Garden probed over use of facial recognition to eject lawyers from show venues. And just browsing the article, doing my best ChatGPT impression, there was in December an attorney, Kellen Conlon, who was denied entry into Radio City Music Hall with her daughter and her Girl Scout troop to see a Rockette show. You know, the one with the legs. Yeah, they. So she was denied access to the premise because she was an attorney who was representing a client that was suing Madison Square Garden. So they were essentially saying, if you have active litigation, you cannot come into the premise for any reason, even for entertainment, even to take your daughter to see a show. Doesn't matter. If you have beef with us, and you sent me a link to the other story about James Dolan in defending, you know, kicking people out of a Knicks game, if you have any kind of active legislation, or if you have any active litigation against us, you have to wait until you can come back into our private venues. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what's happening.
Well, I mean, it's exactly what we talk about with Twitter and Facebook. Private company, right? We can kick you out if you don't need a reason, right? But what do people expect? I mean, it's one thing to kick someone out on Twitter because they say something against you or something, or block you, but it's another thing to say you can't come to my venue. But they're no different. What we've done is we've weaponized biofeedback, systems, and your face is biofeedback, just like a fingerprint. And so what we've done is we have allowed companies to, like I said, not just weaponize, but to utilize them in a way we haven't done before. And it's like, if you were to talk about this optimistically, you'd say, oh, we're going to catch killers, we're going to catch rapists, we're going to catch pedophiles, we're going to catch this. But in reality, it's going to be used for pettiness in a way that, like I said, will keep people out or keep track of people. I'm of two minds of this. It is a private venue. And if you've heard about this before, a venue is keeping people out that may have, that may be stooping for something.
Right.
I guess The difference would be the method that they find you.
Yeah, and so the lawyer that is of course now representing that lawyer that was representing the other people that got kicked out. Anyways, the lawsuit is essentially saying that there are laws on the books that protect people from being discriminated based on their profession. So you can't go up and be like, "Sorry, we don't serve coal miners here," at our restaurant.
By the way, real quick, that picture in that story, that guy is dressed like a Christmas tree.
Yes, he absolutely is.
In that story, but
great.
Yeah, he's a guy dressed like a Christmas tree walking down the street.
With Timberland boots, of course.
He's trying to evade the facial recognition software by dressing like a tree.
Well, if you stand out, you can't blend in. So there you go. But anyways, to her point was saying that you can't discriminate someone based on their occupation, and what they're kind of claiming is that if this thing were to allowed to be continued, lawyers could not take cases for fear of being retaliated on. Let's say if you took up a client that wanted to sue Disney, and then Disney said you can't come in to see any of our movies, any of our stuff, you can't subscribe to our streaming service. Essentially, lawyers would be dissuaded from taking cases because they could not use services like that for completely unrelated reasons.
Wait a minute. Have you never seen Fletch? Have you never seen the movie Fletch?
I have never. I have not.
Or even the new one with John Hamm, which I will mention. I will mention him again here in a second because it's pertinent. Mm-hmm. He figured it out. He wore disguises. He put on a mustache. He tousled his hair. He could be a doctor. You know how he's a doctor? He wore a green shirt.
That seems like a lot of work.
Thing. Yeah. But he found a way to bypass the system. No, I'm just kidding. But it's true. But that's what's going to happen, though. But what do we do, though? We don't. Yeah. This is new territory. Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to leave people with this, kind of thought is that we're quickly running into a situation where, as I said way at the beginning of the show, it's not so much we have to start having these conversations because, what happens when jobs get automated in 5 years? What happens when truck drivers, can't be truck drivers anymore? Blah, 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 blah. Some of these conversations are coming up on us so fast. Like a year ago, AI was a thing. Yeah, we were kind of talking about it. I remember talking about AlphaGo and, how every professional Go player was, now on lookout, and AI playing chess and that kind of thing. But these conversations, Nathan, seem like it's not a conversation that we need to have eventually. It's a conversation that we need to have now because this is happening.
Let me give you a hypothetical. Have you heard of the trolley problem, the famous morality question?
Yes,
there's people on the track.
Either do nothing, kill one person, or pull the lever and kill 5 people. Yeah.
Well, let's do a camera version of the trolley question. Let's pose this hypothetically. So let's just say you're on a road where no one's there, and you're speeding. Speed limit's 30. You're going 50. No one sees you. No cops. There's nobody there. Nobody gets hurt. But a camera sees you, flags your license plate. Oh, you went 15 to 30. I'm going to give you a ticket. So, but nobody saw you. No person saw you. No one got hurt. Victimless crime. But you still get a ticket. Should you get a ticket if no one saw you and no one got hurt? That's the question. And that's what we're posing here, is that should we infract people based on the idea that a crime was committed, but it was witnessed by a computer? Like, you didn't hurt anybody. Like, the argument would be, but it's preventative. We don't want you to, but there wasn't someone hurt. So, and I think what's happening is you're using facial recognition, for example, based on a database, which I don't know where they get that information from. Is it from the DMV? I don't know. Like, are they using public data to call from public metadata? I mean, clearly, I don't think Madison Square Garden has their own private database, but I've never given them my picture. But then what of it? Like you said, are they going to bar you because you're the wrong profession? Are they going to bar you because whatever? Great example: the no-fly list with the FAA. Like, someone made a point that back in 1998 there was 5 people on the no-fly list. Today there are thousands. But what gets you on there? And you don't even know you're on half the time. You don't even know.
Being in a post 9/11 world, man, that's I'm sure there's a lot of ways to get onto the no-fly list.
people made a big deal about the Patriot Act because it gave the government regulatory powers to look at things when they couldn't look at you. For example, we can't look in your home, so we're going to look at everything else. We're going to look at your library books. We're going to look at your trash.
We're going to look in your garbage. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Remember, they mocked that on the Batman movie, The Dark Knight, when Batman developed that echolocation thing with cell phones. It pissed Alfred off. Remember?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to spy on you by not spying on you. We're going to like it's like finding a fossil.
The greater good.
In a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The greater good.
So. The fun thing about these conversations is that there is no right answer. If someone had the right moral authority to say this is what everyone should do, boy, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But these are conversations that are going to be taking place, and legislation will be drafted on based on the answers to these. So I am curious to see what happens, Nathan. And we're going to switch off from AI and machine learning and all this facial recognition stuff.
Well, look, the Terminator's coming. This is proof. The AI. Here's what's going to happen. AI is going to hook up with facial recognition, and they're going to produce offspring, and it's going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's what's going to happen.
He's somehow going to be retroactively birthed a second time. So yeah, we'll
as many as it takes.
We'll figure that one out. So we're going to do one more little topic, and we're going to keep this one a little bit shorter, and then we'll move on to more fun stuff. But one real quick thing: Justice Department sues Google for monopolizing digital advertising technologies, and I gotta say, man, if you're going to go after Google, and this is like the floodgate, if this gets any kind of traction, Nathan, there are so many monopolies in technology.
For this. I've been waiting for this for years.
Technology and monopolies kind of go hand in hand. There's not really room for second best. You can, Nathan just mentioned Mozilla, so that's kind of in my head. Ever since Chrome came on board, there really has not been room for second best in technology. That's not how technology very much is a kind of a winner takes all kind of proposition.
Well, it's kind of funny you mentioned Mozilla again, because that's literally a great example of what happened. Because for long story short, people don't remember, or because the last time the U.S. government did this, I think the Department of Justice, I think they went after Apple for iBooks, which is ridiculous. But they went after Microsoft because they said they had browser dominance with Internet Explorer because they baked it into the operating system, which the leading browser before was Netscape. Eventually that was phased out. The remnants became Mozilla, which was actually funded by Google. Google was their major supplier for many, many years until, again, they did their time until Chrome was created, and they didn't dump them, but most of the funding went, by the wayside. But no, I think competition's good. But the reason I'm a little for this one is personal. I run a website that was built around the Google APIs that they mandated. We just had to do it. Like, there was nothing else. But something happened, and we were booted off Google AdSense, and they wouldn't tell us why.
Really?
They literally sent me an email saying, you've been, I forget the exact term, but the wording that got me was, we know you would like answers, but we cannot provide them. And there was no retaliation I could do to it. I could not do it. We're still off. And so, how hard it was to seek an alternative to Google AdSense? Almost impossible.
Probably almost impossible.
We found one. It was called MediaNet, and I think they literally went out of business last year too. So we don't do ads on the website simply because it's just tiresome. Like, without Google, there was nothing. And I know there are other attempts by Google to subvert all this stuff, like ad blockers. They would do AMP, which destroys websites, by the way, destroys the experience. You have all these other systems where I think what was the program that Google was trying to do that was getting away from JavaScript ads, and it was a failure. It was some new advertising model.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
But because the advertising model has gone off of static websites and it's gone onto streaming video, it's gone onto podcasts, and Google doesn't really have a say there. But when it comes to traditional websites, I can tell you right off the bat, from personal, I am a scorned woman. I will tell you this right now. People built their websites around what Google said, and they would demonetize you if you said the wrong thing. They would demonetize you if you had something else, there was almost no way to get in touch with anybody. And it was pretty harsh. Like, you felt the monopoly on you. It was pretty harsh, and I didn't appreciate it.
It's one that if you, let's say you're an app developer, and you want to actually sell products through your app, sure, there's Android and iOS, but yeah, you kind of need to be on iOS, and you are subject to Apple and everything Apple says, and how your and how your app is made, how it's coded, kind of how the payment works through it. Everything has to be up to Apple's, standards. And yeah, you can always say, yeah, just go to Android. That's not really how the financials of having an app work. If you're not on iOS, you're probably not making that much money.
That's true. And the difference between Apple and Android versus this is that this applies to the web itself. Yes. And this is something that was built on something Google did not create, did not manage. WebKit, web development tools have been around since the early 90s. Google created a layer on top of that. It became, I guess you'd call it functionally an API, that the idea was that Google would somehow utilize their vast, algorithm of search. And they would basically entice you to say, if you want to be part of this, then you have to slather your website, like the back end, with all this stuff. It seemed like a good proposition at first, but it quickly became predatory because there was no way out of it. So
let's look at the and for everyone looking at the video portion, this is directly from the Department of Justice and the lawsuit that when the U.S. government sues you, you got to take that seriously. So they're saying Google's anti-competitive conduct has included acquiring competitors. I don't think anyone could ever deny that tech companies don't acquire up and coming startups.
Yeah, but that alone wouldn't be enough.
No. There's definitely more. Forcing adoption of Google's tools, which is what you were saying. You have to have all the back end stuff and that locks you in to Google. It's a lot of development time.
By the way, could not have competitors. It was restricted. You could not have multiples on there.
Right. You had to use their stuff, and their stuff only works with Google stuff, and there was no getting around that. Distorting auction competition, which is limiting real-time bids for publisher inventory to its ad exchange and impeding rival ad exchanges' ability to compete. So essentially, Google could tell how much their competitors were, kind of serving for ads, for clicks, all that kind of thing, and they could, using algorithms, very easily make it so that Google was the best and really only option if you wanted to make money. They could undercut their competition and make the most from their customers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the last one was auction manipulation, where even for Google itself, they could manipulate the auction because it was their auction. They could manipulate that to insulate Google, the company, from the price schemes that they were doing. Essentially, it was not a free market. Google was controlling all sides of the ads, selling the ads, serving the ads, all that kind of thing.
Well, there are also two things they didn't mention in the complaint. One was ideological complaints that Google would restrict like certain things. Of course, that's a personal thing, but that's not in here. The other one is the favoritism towards Google's self-imposed programs. Like Google would favor itself. And I don't think that's what I thought would be the justice of the complaint, but I guess not. This is the way the government's doing it is smarter than I would have done it. For example, when Apple was sued by the Justice Department for, being a monopoly with digital books, which, by the way, no, but, it was a slam dunk case that was settled. But when it comes to what Google was doing, Google is so intractably part of the web that I don't know this is not going to court. I don't even think Google's going to fight this. There'll be some sort of settlement. But it's kind of late to do this. They should have done this years ago.
I'm always of the idea, Nathan, that if something's too big to fail, you got to tear it down. You got to take steps to make it so that it's not too.
I don't think anything's too big to fail is a threat. It's not a fulfillment. You're not too big to fail. You will if you provide a service, it could be unless you're God, you can be replaced. And what I mean is when it comes to Google, I think I see this one on the website. For example, I don't want to talk too much about Popzara's backend, but we've been doing considerable work on the backend on distangling ourselves from the web. And for primarily this, we do a lot with podcasts, and I can talk to you about this before we wrap up. We had a really cool thing I was going to save for later, nice. But we now have put our future, all our eggs in one basket, so to speak, for podcasting stuff.
I've heard that's very safe to do.
Well, yeah, but the way we did it allowed us to sort of have it both ways, and I could explain that later. But we've been forced to, I hate to say forced, but we've been left with no choice but to try to get away from Google in a way. I love Google, in general, I love Gmail, I love Google Docs. I mean, I have no problem with the services, but their predatory behavior when it comes to Google AdSense is disgusting. And it's been a long time coming, and everybody listening knows this.
It seems like your opinion is not alone. And I would say when it comes to tech in general, I've said this on the show for a long time. Tech is, monopolistic. And as I said way at the beginning of this conversation, there is not really room for second. If you're not first, why? Everything's so accessible. Why wouldn't you be on the first of every platform? And two
things.
This is well deserved. Is all I'm saying.
Well, two things. One, there's room for seconds on services, right? On services like Firefox or Xbox versus PlayStation, there's room for Netflix and Disney Plus. There's room for services. But when it comes to intractable things where the entire modality of the internet is being challenged, again, people will compare this to Apple and iOS. It's nothing like that. It is nothing like that. Apple makes the hardware, Apple makes the software, Apple makes the ecosystem. That's it. What Google's doing affects everything. You cannot get away from it. It's inescapable. Absolutely cannot get away. But
you are providing a bit more context than even I've had. I guess having your first person experience with your Google ad troubles. I want to thank you for kind of sharing that.
I'm a little biased.
Yeah,
I'm a little biased, but I've heard this complaint from others, and right. I will say this. I mean, you and I have talked about this on other shows, and my opinion has not changed. It's solidified that when you have something like YouTube, which run by Google, or you have something like Twitter, or you have something like Facebook, I do not believe, and I really wish there would be some sort of legislation to codify this, that it is the same as a private company can discriminate, because you would not accept that in any other circumstance. You would not accept your black friend being denied a cafe seat. You would not accept your Muslim friend being denied an airplane ride. You would not accept that. You should not accept that on the digital space, because what's happening is you literally have a contract with these companies. You are the product. You are giving them all your private information. They're giving you access to Google Docs or whatever. And so the contract should protect, marriage, we talked about, contract should protect both parties. That if I'm going to invest spending ad in Twitter or YouTube or whatever, then my investment has to be protected as well. And I can't be bound by arbitrary rules that change because someone farted and they don't like the smell. It's not fair. It's not fair as a user. If one thing, I can't watch my cat videos, but if I want to produce cat videos and make money off it, then my brand, who I am, should be protected from frivolous changes. And with Google, you can't do that. They literally would change on a whim, and there's nothing you could do about it. And frankly, I'm going to watch this really well, because this is going to be the biggest tech DOJ case since, like you said, Microsoft with antitrust back in the 90s.
Right.
So, of course, nothing really happened after that. Didn't really happen.
Yeah, there's. I feel like there's going to be a lot of them in the pipeline, and as someone who deals with tech all the time, needs to happen. I really feel like. Okay, so we're going to deviate from that, and I think for the last 10 minutes of the show, we're going to get into fun stuff. And the first one, I think a lot of people out there, my age, and you're my age, we have fond memories of Goldeneye 007. For a lot of people, it was a very revolutionary game for the Nintendo 64. It's split screen, I think, was the campaign was what it was, and the graphics were nothing to really speak about. I guess for the time they were, but the ability to play split screen and the ability to have your friends over and play 4 people at once, man, that was so much fun. So a lot of people have a lot of good memories of GoldenEye 007. I had no idea until you came on the show, Nathan, that it's getting a 25-year re-release.
I played it right before the show.
Visuals.
If you're on the Xbox.
Yes.
I'm not going to really talk too much about the mechanics of the game. There was a documentary about Goldeneye that came out last year. It's not a very good documentary, but honestly, it exists. I recommend watching it. Game was made by Rare, published by Nintendo. This game has been in licensing hell for almost 30 years. It's owned by like 10 different companies. Nintendo owns part of it. Rare owns part of it. Microsoft owns part of it. MGN owns part of it. Sony owns part of it. Amazon owns part of it. Everybody owns it. And of course, trying to get everybody at the table is like the Last Supper. It ain't going to happen unless you're Jesus. So apparently Jesus showed up because it's here. Now, the interesting thing is it's not free, but if you have Nintendo's paid service, like the whole shebang, it's on there. And if you have Microsoft's, I think it's on Game Pass, I think it is, it's there. Here's the difference, though. There's a catch-22. The Switch version is much more faithful to the Nintendo 64 version in all the ways that matter, in some positive or negative. The Switch version is online. You could play it online. The Xbox version, which is clearly the better version, is not online. It's split screen. Or whatever. So, so choose your poison. I tried playing it before the show on the Switch. The controls are Nintendo 64 accurate, which means I don't know what the hell is going on. My brain has been remapped through 30 years of console shooters, so I have to unlearn I have to consciously uncouple from modern shooters.
Yes.
GoldenEye, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. I've never been the biggest GoldenEye fan, but I do like the game quite a bit. I enjoyed it. I think it's fantastic. I think it changed the history of everything. I think it proved that this genre could thrive on consoles, which it has. As a big James Bond fan, of course, I'm huge. I would credit this game more than anything else in the last 20 years in helping resurrect and preserve the excitement for the James Bond franchise. Like, the game was more successful than the movie, and the movie was pretty good. Yeah. So I would say if you have Xbox Live, try it out. If you have the Switch Online, try it out. I mean, why not? It's there.
Yeah, there you go. It's it's there. It exists. Some exuberant, high energy phrases coming out about GoldenEye 007 relaunch from Nathan. So good to hear.
I couldn't figure it out, so I was judo chopping everybody. Right? I was like, how the hell do I shoot my gun? But I will say this: my last experience with GoldenEye was back in 2010. EA remade the game, and they did something really weird. They had Daniel Craig star in it for some reason, which didn't make any sense. But the remake was really good on the Wii. It was eventually, I think it came out on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, but it was wonderful on the Wii. It was one of the best remakes I've ever seen. And I think I know where you're going to go, the next story about another remake. But remakes can be good as long as the essence is there. But you don't want just the same thing over again. You want a reason for it to exist sometimes. And that's the stumbling block. So
and I think that was news today that they're coming out with a new Dead Space.
It came out today.
Dead Space remake as well.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Dead Space remake came out today. So
got you. Yeah.
And
so
I haven't played it.
Okay, so my turn to be up front. I never played Dead Space.
What? Get out of here.
Yeah, I know, right? Never played Dead Space and never played any of that. So I'm very in the dark about Dead Space in general.
Oh yeah, Dead Space was 2 really good games and 1 really not good game. Dead Space 3 is one of those games where it killed the franchise. And it killed the franchise by what becomes standard for EA, the publisher, where they would microtransaction the hell out of something and take something that was really good in short bursts and stretch it all to hell. And they did this a lot over the last 10 years. I can't even tell you how many games have been sullied by EA's shenanigans. The one that hurt me was, you ever play Plants vs. Zombies? The mobile game?
Of course. They acquired the whole studio, PopCap. Of course.
Oh yeah, loved the first game. The second game was torture because they took something that was short, sweet, and they stretched it out with microtransactions, and you just can't do that with certain things. But by all accounts, the new Dead Space remake is very good. And a lot of people would be confused for thinking this came out last month with something called the Callisto Protocol, which was actually created by people who made Dead Space. Again, by every measure, the new Dead Space is much better. Need to play it. I was a big fan of the first 2. It's survival horror. And, the genre has come back because Capcom has been remaking the Resident Evil games wonderfully. Right. By the way, I want to state that
I have seen the the graphic updates and the re-releases of the of those, and they're very good.
Gameplay upgrades, quality of life upgrades, sound, audio. They've been fantastic. Resident Evil 4 is coming out this year. Looks great. That's how you do it. Like, you can't just re-release stuff. Like, you got to take a swing at it. And they've been really good. I will try to play Dead Space this weekend. I know our own editor, Corey, is going to be playing it and loving it probably. But I wish I could say more.
No, and hey, the fact that it's out, I'm sure, is news enough for a lot of people. I think with that, and if you're looking for something fun to do, I guess a re-release Dead Space could be it. Could be Goldeneye 007 Return. Could also be listening to a podcast, and that's my best way to segue into something that let's see, what is it? You and your crew, namely Herman Exum, yourself, did a podcast for CES 2023 wrap up.
Oh, you were there.
I helped just a little bit.
Shake and bake, and I helped. You remember that commercial?
I helped. So you did. You put this together, and of course Herman was out there putting in the legwork. The Consumer Electronics Show 2023, where we try to talk about trends and standout products, standout services, things like that. And I want to give people a little bit of a teaser, but of course we have a link up on our website directly to it, and you of course have it up on your site there as a podcast. Let's just give the folks a nice little preview. CES 2023. How did it go for you? How was it for you and your crew? Because obviously this was a very this is like the first year that masks were not required. Anyone could come back. It was CES was back in full swing. How'd it go?
Well, great for me because I didn't go, but I was sitting at home. But no, Herman Exum, our senior tech editor, went begrudgingly, but he liked it. He enjoyed himself because Las Vegas is one of the only places you can drink on the Strip. You can bring a tall boy into a Del Taco. But the show itself, I think I was a little more enthusiastic than Herman because, again, didn't go. But it was sort of a return to the zaniness of CES. Like, that's what people expected from CES, and it's become so routine. Not bad. CES has never been bad. It's not E3, but it's supposed to be zany. You're supposed to see robots. You're supposed to see robots. You're supposed to see
folding cars,
weird, wacky
flying cars, and
prototypes,
and
prototypes that eventually will work their way into something. And I think the zaniness we had there was a lot with laptops of all things. Like, laptops were crazy and they were zany. You had you had 3D laptops. You had multi-stacker laptops. You had e-ink laptops with OLED screens. You had crazy stuff. I mean, insanity. I'm going crazy just thinking about it. No, but a lot of car stuff too. Arnold Schwarzenegger was there with color changing cars. Go figure. Dancing robots. You had automated, self-driving baby strollers of all things. Baby translators. Go figure.
Yeah, there's a lot there for everyone to hear, and of course, you, myself, and Herman, you guys a little bit longer put in some good time and had a very, very fun podcast. And I'm obviously biased, but I recommend everyone go check it out and hear the full conversation right there. So unless you have any other topics, Nathan, I think we've covered, kind of given people a nice reprieve before the weekend, and before this was the nice way to relax. So any other topics you want to hit before we kind of wrap up?
I will say this. You weren't part of it because you were busy getting married, but we did do a recap of the best games, the best and worst games. I don't know if you saw that. If you click on the podcast button, it's on there. Really proud of that. Special guest Antal Bokar from Chicago was on there. He's returning champ. So you want to hear what we thought about the best, the worst, everything else in the games. There's a lot going on. There's no definitive top 10 list because you can't have that. But it's a smorgasbord. It's a lot going on. We're going to be recording.
I'm glad that Vampire Survivors obviously made it on. I'm surprised Dark Tide made it on, and you have a lot of good.
Vampire Survivors made on everybody's. It made my list, made Corey's list. And in fact, what's funny, a little breaking news at the time, twice, is that 2 games were released on iOS during the show. We had Vampire Survivors was released on iOS, and the Turtles game, the Shredder's Revenge, was released on iOS through Netflix of all things and Android. No, it's funny because it's fun listening to different opinions. Like you can't, we're talking about SEO stuff. When everybody's doing the same top 10 games, whatever, it gets a little samey. But Ben, there's so many interesting little things that came out that are just not getting attention.
This year, and I will say, because most of my time is currently being taken up playing things like Valheim, Slay the Spire, and of course, I'm always going to play WoW. But this year, more so than any other year, I will say indie games killed it. They really came out in a strong way.
Although I will say this, though, if you're looking for a game of the year, I mean, kind of conclusively, most of us kind of agreed that it was Elden Ring. But yes, I will say this, a couple other like close ones. I think Kirby and the Forgotten Lands was huge on most of our lists. Vampire Survivors was huge on most of our lists. Not a real consensus other than that, but that's kind of what you listen for. But final thoughts, we don't have it yet. We haven't recorded yet, but we are in the process of gestating a best and worst movies of 2023. We're finishing out now. The guys are wrapping up. They're watching screeners and everything. We're going to be trying to do that next weekend. So the Oscar nominations just came out. So
yeah, sounds like
a lot of good stuff there too.
Yeah, and of course, sounds like another great podcast. So everyone, and you can go check out Popzara. They have a number of podcasts, and the guests that you have on and the crew that you've put together, always great.
I do have some techie stuff to tell you later, though.
Absolutely. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the program. We will catch you here next time. Remember, Nathan is on every last Friday of the month, and you can set your clocks by it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us here. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Everyone, catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.